You talk about the Ann Arbor teacher. Well, that teacher who's putting money into the union, which the union already has all of this money in the teachers or in the administration's head, suddenly massive amounts of money to play with. The schools never got better in that period of time, which is interesting because that goes against the whole argument that if you just keep pouring money into schools, that's the only thing they need to make sure they have high test scores. But that's certainly not true. But then you break it down and you say, okay, that teacher in Michigan who puts money into the union, then the union passes that money to another arm of the Woketopus that goes, okay, we've got to be obsessed with the climate. So we're going to shut down gas powered vehicles and we're going to start only making electric vehicles. And so all of the students' parents who work at the factory down the street in Michigan, suddenly that factory is being obsoleted because they're going to build one in Tennessee. You know, it's like, oh my gosh, do you not see how this is working? But we don't, because it's behind the veil. You know, people have to really understand what is going on and dig into this like you do in this book to see, holy cow, none of this is occurring organically. None of this is natural. This is all this is well-funded propaganda that goes through multiple different areas and gets to the people in multiple different ways and gets to the corporations. I mean, how could corporations be duped into thinking that they have to have the score from the HRC if they do not have a massive amount of propaganda hitting them every day saying you have to do this because it seems ridiculous. It's not a real thing.
Yeah, it is. And on the climate issue, it's a massive amount of propaganda. I mean, and it gets even worse. Not only is the money from the Ann Arbor teacher going to the Woketopus and then going to these activist groups that are pressuring the government to shut down opportunities for oil and gas, but we also have this orchestrated campaign where, you know, under the Inflation Reduction Act, one of the biggest lies the Biden administration told, they said, we have to pass this bill to lower inflation. But what was the bill actually doing? What did Biden brag about as soon as it was passed? He said this was the greatest investment in climate infrastructure in a generation. And so you look at all that money, and who is the one who decides where the money goes? None other than, hold your breath for this, John Podesta, the guy who led Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign, the guy who founded the Center for American Progress, which is an organization at the center of the Woketopus, an organization that pushes for all of pretty much every single issue that I outlined in the book. The Center for American Progress is a driving factor. Open borders, climate crackdowns, pushing gender insanity. And he's the one, and he is very well connected to the big donors at the top of the Woketopus. People like Hans-Jörg Wyss, who's a Swiss who came to the United States. We don't know if he actually became a United States citizen because he still hasn't told us. But he's the one who's been bankrolling a lot of these ballot initiatives.
But if he were on the right, everybody would know if he was a U.S. citizen. Because if he weren't, he would be thrown out of here.
just like Charles and David Koch. Everyone would know that, Hans-Jörg Wyss is having this huge impact. Just like Harlan Crow. We know Harlan Crow's name because they've been demanding transparency. But, you know, every time you talk about George Soros, they say that you're an anti-Semite. It's like now it's not even George, it's his son Alex who's running the Open Society Foundations. And he said...
And actually funding anti-Semitic protesters.
Exactly.
You can't make it up.
You can't.